Hello, I'm Karma Kitaj. I'm your host for A Livelihood, New Careers as We Age. And today I'm going to introduce you to Birute, Regine, who is an old friend from, well, she and I were visiting research scholars, I think it's called, at Wellesley Centers for Women many years ago. That was a fancy title. But we worked together for about a year, and we have kept in touch. So let me introduce you to Birute. Welcome.
Thank you, Dharma.
Yeah, so I know that you have just published a book not very long ago at all, so this is wonderful timing for us to be talking.
It is. It's perfect timing.
Yeah. So we're going to hear a lot about it, and the name of your book is Iron Butterflies and
Women Transforming Themselves and the World.
Okay, Women Transforming Themselves and the World. So let me just say, Birute, that I know that for your own personal transformation, that you were a psychotherapist for several decades, right? And then you decided to sort of really go back to a first love, something that you knew you were interested in as a child, right?
Right. I mean, when I was writing my dissertation on love, actually, I would wake up at 5 in the morning in a fever, just really loving the writing process, and remembering, a time when I was 12 years old and it's really funny because I remember sitting on this burgundy couch and saying to myself, I'm 12 years old, I'm pretty, I'm smart, and I'm going to be a writer. And I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. And I did, but I didn't, because I ended up going into psychology. But even during that time, it was always there, a seed of wanting to write. I was always writing poems on the side while I was raising my kids. I wrote a book with my husband, co-authored a book with my husband, Roger Lewin, called The Soul at Work, Embracing Complexity Science for Business Success. It went out in paperback in a different name because the publisher thought, business people don't like the soul word. So we had to call it Weaving Complexity in Business, Embracing the Soul at Work.
So for that book, I remember you interviewed people who were leaders of all different
companies
kinds of
that were functioning more in the being more conscious of themselves as a complex system. They either knew about complexity or they were doing it intuitively, which meant that the organizations were flatter, there was more diversity, they valued
open... What do you mean by flatter? Not hierarchical?
Not so heavily hierarchical. And they had embraced diversity, and allowed for lots of self-organization. So these are some of the ideas, of complexity. So yeah, we would go into these companies and talk to people, and what came out was relationships are the bottom line. For them, that was the bottom line for them. And in retrospect, I saw that the leaders we spoke to were all men. And I thought, and they had embraced a more feminine side to their leadership skills, because not only do they look at the bottom line or try to get to that goal, but they also value relationships, and they were very attuned to that dimension of interaction in the company, the people, the human factor, and it was that combination that made them very successful leaders. So I was interested, well, what does this look like in women leaders? That kind of masculine, feminine leadership. And I started to interview women in the business field, and it quickly began to expand to all fields, and I ended up interviewing women in 10 countries. And from all walks of life, congresswomen, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, a Pulitzer Prize nominee, a governor, CEOs, judges, but a housewife, artist. So it was a big range of people. What happened was that I ended up saying, what do these women have in common? And that's where the surprise for me came, was in how they dealt with vulnerability. That in fact that was a key for their personal transformation. And because when you go through transitions, as the people on this program have, that's a period of vulnerability. because you don't quite know where you're going, what's going to be.
Sure.
But how do you deal with it? Do you pretend it's not there? I mean, so what these women ended up doing...
Or do you just toughen yourself up?
Toughen yourself up,
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And and stay in a toxic environment, or do you, so these women were able to to transform those vulnerabilities into strengths.
So what transitions were they going through?
So they were in these male-dominated environments, and so they adapted. They either became Amazons or shape changers, and often both.
Amazons meaning what?
They dissociate from their feminine side. They become, because we've been in a domination-based society for 5,000 years at least. And so you have a choice. You're either going to be dominated or dominating. Amazons decide to dominate. And
so do you mean that they take on more sort of macho qualities?
Yeah, macho qualities become, show that they're man enough for the job. And then, or they chase the other path, which is the traditional, nurturing, taking care of everybody, shape changer. She'll be anything what you want her to be. So neither of these you're not really authentic. You're not fully authentic and not fully yourself.
Not expressing your whole self.
That's right. You don't feel like you have permission to express your whole self. And the interesting thing is that time where it would seem like she was doing nothing is a very important time when you're going through a transition and a transformation, because you're actually shedding an old skin. And it seems like that pause is very important. It's a kind of a...
It's a cocooning.
It's a cocooning. That's right, like the butterfly. That's why I call them iron butterflies. They're determined, persistent, and the touch of a butterfly. But they go in this period where there's a pause, and then they come out more authentic and more connected to themselves. So that was, and so the amazing thing is that because of the way they dealt with their own vulnerabilities and honored that period of time, how they relate to other people in their work environments is very different. They allow for vulnerabilities in their work environment. And that means people can say they're afraid, they don't know, they made a mistake, they're insecure. If you can express those things, then you're leveling the playing field at work. Everybody's mutual, because that is our common denominator. We are all vulnerable. They also become a learning environment when you can admit vulnerabilities.
You told me that there was this wonderful review of your new book in the Huffington Post, which I looked up today, and I just wanted to read this little piece because I think it does speak to what you're talking about. And it says, in a complex environment and an interconnected world, skills associated with women will prove more and more effective. Their holistic view of the world, their ability to see interconnections among things, their relational intelligence, and their tendencies toward collaboration and inclusion, and their ability to empathize. So that says a lot in that one paragraph.
It is, and all of those qualities have been marginalized as touchy-feely, and now the very thing that's kept women out of the mainstream is what empowers them to lead right now.
So you know what I'm thinking about? People who do get into leadership positions in institutions or corporations, women, for example, who might start out allowing their vulnerability to show, but then they keep getting this feedback, this information that that's not okay.
That's right.
So that then they start to, as you say, become more armored.
Absolutely. And that's
what can women do to avoid going in that direction, but rather to allow their feminine qualities to speak more loudly?
Well, because I call it a hardening that happens undetected. And I think the reason that's happened to women more so is because we have not collaborated with each other. We've been emotional supports for each other, but professionally we haven't been very good at covering each other's back. So I think that one of the important things is to find your sisters You know, because if you're the only woman at the table, you can't do it.
Well, okay, this has been fascinating, and we're going to, I'm going to enjoy the book. So thank you very much. I appreciate your coming, Birute.
Thank you for inviting me.